Today in our whiteboard conversation, I want to talk about the relationship between involvement and buy-in in your church. There are a whole lot of people that are involved in the life of the church, but the question is, are they bought into the vision? Are they bought into the destination of where you're headed as an organization? And so what I'm going to do today, like most of the conversations I have, I'm going to draw some quadrants for you. There'll be 4 quadrants, and so let's take a look at this. We're going to have the relationship between the buy-in to the vision, and involvement in the ministry. So I'm going to just write the word involve here. Involvement and buy-in. And so I'm going to, again, draw 4 quadrants, and we're going to distinguish this through conversations about yes, they're involved, or no, they're not. Or yes, they're bought in, and yes, they're involved, or no, they're not bought in, or no, they're not involved. So let's talk about this for a minute. And what I really think the easiest way to talk about this is, imagine you're on a ship. Imagine you're sailing. You're someone on that ship, and I want you to figure out what you would call yourself based on these 4 quadrants. For example, imagine someone who is bought into the destination that you're headed to. They're also deeply involved in getting you to that destination. What would you call that person on a ship? The answer is you would call that person the crew. He's part of the crew, or she's part of the crew. In a lot of churches, you would call them the servant team, or perhaps those who serve in ministry or in leadership in your church. But they're helping you get to the destination where you want to go. These are the most valuable people on the ship. And you need to thank them and encourage them and build them and train them and do all these different things to make sure that they're taken care of in the life of this ship and the destination where you're headed. There's also another group that's bought into the destination. They want to go where you're going, but they're really not involved in getting you there. What would you call that person? Well, in boat terminology, you call that person a passenger. A passenger is they're bought in a destination. They want to get to the island. They want to get to the place. They want to get to the resort, but they're really not doing much to help. There are a whole lot of people in the church that are passengers, and they're great for for the critical mass and things like that. But in the end, you really love for them to become part of the crew and get involved. And maybe we'll talk about that in another leadership whiteboard leadership moment. The third group I want to mention is these people who are on the boat that aren't bought into the destination, and they really aren't involved in anything. What would you call a person that was on a ship that really just jumped on board because they didn't have anything else to do? They just kind of showed up. Well, in sailing terms, you call that person a stowaway. A stowaway. They really don't care where you're headed. They're just along for the ride. Lots of churches have stowaways. They're doing it because their parents make them come or their spouse makes them come. They're just there along for the ride. They're really not engaged in the vision. They're really not engaged in the mission. They're not even engaged in the conversation of the church. Now, here's where church leadership goes wrong. We think that stowaways are the bad people on the boat, but they're not. See, they're again part of the critical mass, and they're okay. They're not causing any harm, and maybe just a little bit, but they're not the ones that cause the problems. The problem comes when people are deeply involved in the activity of the boat, but they're not bought into the destination. They don't like where you're headed. Now, what would you call someone who was deeply involved but was looking for an opportunity to make sure that you did not get to the destination that you wanted to go because they had a different destination in their mind? You would call this person a pirate. See, the hardest people to deal with in a boat or in a church in this case are those who are deeply involved. They're serving as small group leaders or perhaps even staff or children's ministry workers, but they really don't like the vision. In fact, they'll behind the scenes speak out against it. They'll mumble, and they're going to cause a mutiny eventually. If leadership ever makes a wrong step, does a wrong thing, these are the most dangerous people. And so, like a previous leadership whiteboard conversation, you're gonna eventually counsel these people out. You're gonna make them, in a sense, walk the plank. Otherwise, one day when you mess up, they'll make you walk the plank. And so you can't have people who are deeply involved in the life and the leadership of your church and not bought into the vision, because vision drives everything. I hope this is a helpful diagram for you. Here's what I'd ask you to think about. If I was to put my staff and my leaders, if I was to put people in my congregation in one of these categories, where would they fit? And if so, what would I do with them to help passengers become crew members, to help stowaways at least get involved as passengers? And what will I do with these pirates that I find? And the answer, again, is you need to have them walk the plank. This has been a Converge Whiteboard Leadership Moment. To learn more about Converge or to join us, check out converge.org.